how does your approach to reading a script differ from when working with new plays as opposed to working with established works?
Well, I will say I mostly work with new plays or plays that are in progress. So my approach generally is that I'm really looking for like the world that is being created versus I think when I'm reading a play that's like been published or some like dead white guys play, like it's just a whole different experience. I think for me when I'm approaching new plays, I look for voice, potential, and specificity, because I think when we're looking at new plays, they are worlds that are emerging or that are like um, coming into themselves in a lot of different ways. And so usually when I start to read a new play, I'm looking to see like what is this world and what is the potential to sort of grow it.
Gotcha. And I know this wasn't one of the questions, but like what like attracts you to like newer plays in general? I know you kind of already like touched on that, but I don't know if you want to expand on that or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, I am, as far as like as an artist and an activist, one of sort of the thing that lies at the intersection of that is the creation of new stories that are not in the lineage that we have seen in the mainstream from the beginning of time. So I'm passionate about new plays because that is the future. That is where opportunities for BIPOC folk lie. That is where opportunities for LGBTQ plus folks are, disabled folks. Like those stories are not captured in the lineage of our history and the so-called canon. So I'm looking for new plays that are going to be part of this new canon that is actually talking about the entirety of the human experience, not just a very, very small, quite boring part of it.
What responsibilities do you have when working with a play in development that differ from your role when working on an established play?
I love this question because my favorite part of working with new plays is like the development phase, the workshops, working with actors, working with directors, and of course myself as the dramaturg. So my favorite part, as far as like responsibilities, is the questions. I'm definitely the type of dramaturg that leads with questions, answers questions with questions. And yeah, so some responsibilities that I have in new play processes are, leading discussions with the actors that sort of help the playwright listen for the teasing out of character development, the teasing out of specific things in the world. Tracking rewrites, some logistical things in that way. And then also my second favorite part, which is, or they're kind of like, they're the same. They're like number one, the conversations with the actors, and then also the conversation with the playwright. And just being there as their biggest cheerleader and as a support system as they continue to hone and sort of self-actualize the world that they're working
What do you
on.
think has been like your biggest contribution when, taking part in this process of, helping playwrights like refine their work?
My biggest contribution, I don't know. I mean, I think every playwright needs different things and works differently. So I feel like maybe like my strong point as like a dramaturg working with different playwrights is that I'm pretty good at determining pretty quickly. Obviously, we always have conversations before we even jump in around how we work and what we need, what are our goals. But I think that something that I'm really good at as a dramaturg is sort of perceiving and learning the way that a playwright is working and how their brain is working and how their brain is working in the world that they're creating, and giving them what it is that they need in response to that. And of course, as for like this event, for example, it's happening, it's one day. So, I think you have to be able to do that rather quickly in order to sort of give the person what they need in that moment, or, in that time span that you're working with them.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, are these things normally like one day or so? This is just like a curiosity question.
Well, they can range from like one day, like this event, to
Mhm.
like 2 weeks, to like a whole sort of rehearsal process that goes into a world premiere. So I've experienced, many different variations of it, and also in many different roles, which I think only helps the situation be better, or like helps me be better.
Mhm.
But yeah, usually for the staged readings, it's always like, a shorter piece of time that you get to spend with the playwright. And, it's usually more for them to be able to hear it out loud. And the best is when a play is at that point where what they really need is to hear it out loud in order to like bring it to the next space.
Yeah, it's definitely a really interesting experience to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question, what is one thing you wish audiences knew about reading and or seeing plays in progress?
So the way that I sort of approach new play development in my brain, which I think could be helpful for folks that are just like walking in the door to like hear a piece in progress, is that because it is a world, you are building a world, number one. Number two, a world has lots and lots of layers to it, right? Like there's lots of different sort of like pathways to be paying attention to, right? Like you can pay attention to the relationship between the characters. You can pay attention to the relationship between the main character and the environment. There's lots of different things that are going on that are sort of layering on top of each other and intertwining with each other to make the thing that you're like sitting down and listening to. And so when folks come to a playing progress, some of those things haven't been worked on yet, or some of them are underdeveloped, or we only focused on like 2 things out of all of the things that probably need to happen. Which I think is probably helpful to walk in the door knowing, and that another sort of really cool thing that could be great for audiences to know is that they are a part of the process, right? So like their response and the way that they sort of experience and sort of meet the art where it's at is actually super helpful for making the play go to its next space, into the next sort of like, step of development.
Right. Okay, so last question. What is the most challenging or rewarding thing about working with the plays in development?
Okay, I think the most rewarding part about working in a play that's in development is when you start at like point A and you have like all these goals, and you're sort of like, you and the playwright and the director, we've, been talking about what it is that our goals are. The most rewarding is when we meet those goals and the play is like transformed, where it's like you start from one version of the play and get to this whole other sort of just like that much closer, or leaps and bounds closer to like what the world wants to be. I think that's the most rewarding. Yeah, I think that's the most rewarding.